Welcome back to the Elle-Sera podcast. And today I have a special guest called Rebecca Jane. Now, I forgot my notepad today. Actually, I wrote down everything Rebecca's done, but my God, what a career she's had. So I'll just say for the start, we're school pals. But since you were at school, you've had a detective agency.
Mm-hmm.
You've been on Big Brother.
Yeah.
You've been a politician.
Yeah.
You've got a law degree.
Yeah.
You were in charge of a mental health charity.
Yeah.
You are a mother.
Yeah.
And a professional arguer, broadcaster on TV.
Yeah. Ta-da! We're done.
So we've got lots to delve into.
Okay.
And I wrote down, one of the first things I wrote down in my little notepad today was contradiction in terms.
Oh, yeah.
Massively. So I want to go back to when you were a detective, because I feel like... So I read this book, and this is how we actually be connected as friends again.
Yeah.
So, and I was like, oh my God, I went to school with her and she's just written this book, and it was a Sunday Times bestseller.
Yeah.
So that's pretty amazing. And it was based on your life owning and running a female detective agency.
Yeah.
Run through some of the things that you encountered doing that.
Oh, God. Well, obviously, I started it all because first ex-husband, and let's start it off by saying I love wedding cake. So there's not just been one ex-husband. But yeah, first one was really, he was very unfaithful.
Right.
Tried to hire investigators, didn't like them, did it myself. And then, my God, the stuff that we saw. So I was there for 9 years, which is a long time for somebody with severe commitment issues.
Yeah.
But we went all over the world. Like, we went to Miami, New York, LA, spent Halloween in LA trying to find a very unfaithful CrossFit personal trainer who wanted to split up his current girlfriend. Bizarre.
You must have come across some bizarre things. I mean, what were some of the most bizarre things you came across when you were at there?
Well, there was the three-legged ferret that we got asked to find. It was the one case we didn't solve.
Right, okay.
Yeah, couldn't find the ferret.
I would feel like the motivation for that one would not really be there as much as a kind of like, I would imagine that if you were someone who's been cheated on and a bit scorned, you probably got a bit more motivation when a woman rings you up in desperate measures saying, I think my partner's being unfaithful, because you could really sympathise with that.
Yeah. And that's why I started it, because I cared. And why I left was because I stopped caring.
Right.
Because after 9 years, when you've heard so many people are just absolutely... Are we allowed to swear on this?
Of course you are. Say what you want. Fuck you.
When so many people are pure arseholes, every time the phone goes and somebody tells you a story, you're like, oh, they're going to be doing this, they're going to be doing that. And I just stopped giving a shit. And I was like, This is the time for me to go. Okay. Because I become so immune to the awful things that we saw, because everybody was an arsehole.
Yeah.
And they still are.
It's hard to, I would imagine, well, how did that affect then your view of the world and relationships?
It's a difficult question, really, because obviously I got married again.
Yeah.
And the book was, I mean, if you read the book now, it's very much, wouldn't even recognise myself.
No.
Because it ends when I get engaged to my second husband, who then does become my second husband. And at that point in time, I was so highly dosed up on antidepressants and medication that I was quite numb. So I didn't really have a really negative view until I'd come off all the medication. I went through another divorce during my time there.
How long were you together with him?
Well, both of my marriages were 3 years, 6 months. So I've got a warranty.
Okay.
So I expire. But we were together obviously before that, and my second ex-husband was my first ever boyfriend from high school.
Right.
So I'd known him for a long time, but yeah, my actual marriage is 3 years, 6 months. But also, like, my personal circumstances kind of very much changed during that period. I changed as a person. The birth of Peaches changed me, and that was the beginning of the end of my marriage as well. And it made me wake up to there's more to life than the life that I've got right now. So I started to come out of my marriage.
Is that because you'd written this successful book? You were starting to get a bit of attention? No. You kind of outgrown that relationship?
No, not quite. I mean, it was just very mundane. And as we know, I'm not a mundane person. I'm a whirlwind and a car crash at the best of times. So it was too mundane. It was very simple. It was very normal. And I just thought, is this it for the rest of my life?
Yeah.
And then obviously the neighbour knocked on the door, and that was the beginning of the very end of my marriage.
Right. And we should say that the neighbour that knocked on your door was someone you instantly kind of fell in love with. Was it like love at first sight almost?
And didn't believe in it until then.
Okay. So this
bolt out of the blue was like, shit, who is this?
This hunk knocks on the door. What were you looking like? Were you like just like hair pal on top of your head, like in your pajamas?
I was okay, because I was about to take, obviously I have my eldest daughter's now 18, but back then she was quite young, and Peaches was very young. She was about 2, maybe less than 2. And I was about to take her to the park, and she'd gone to ask this dad, Paris, the eldest one, if she could go to the park with me and if we could take his daughter.
Right.
And he turns up at the door and said, oh, I'm just about to go to the park. Can I take him? I was like, yep. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So then, okay, so you meet Mr. Hunk on the doorstep, and then what? That's kind of like, oh my God, I don't feel the same way about my husband anymore.
Well, I'd already tried to leave him before that.
Right.
And we had separated, and again, there's a lot of mistakes that have been made along the journey of all of this, but it was, he was absolutely devastated, and I couldn't stand to see his pain. So I was like, just come back and we'll try and make it work. But it wasn't working. And then obviously when he turns up, it then changed everything. And then it was probably about 6 months later, I was like, I can't go on with my marriage. Like, it has to end now.
And did you, strike up a friendship with this guy? Well, he's your next door neighbour. You're going to see him around all the time.
Yeah. And our daughters were best friends. So
right.
that was kind of a bit of an issue. But no, yeah, we did strike up a friendship for about 6 months, and then it was more than a friendship. And obviously I was married, he was engaged. And then, yeah, it probably lasted, how long did it go on for before we actually, he left his fiancée first. I was like, oh crap, I'm going to actually have to leave my husband now, and I don't know how to do it. I wanted to, I didn't know how to. And then it was probably about another 4 or 5 months, and then I did as well. And then we ended up together. For,
yeah, because there was a lot of like, so like, I know a bit of this background, but I do need a refresher. So I know you were together like as a serious couple, exclusive, but then you like were off and on for like years.
5 years. Toxic. The word you're looking for, Alyssa, darling, is toxic.
Toxic,
it was
okay.
horrific. I mean, what the hell were we all thinking? It was awful.
Why was it so toxic?
There was nothing particularly wrong with us. Like, we didn't split up for any horrific reason. We just clashed over stupid stuff. Like, he left me in Cologne because I ate a sandwich without him. Like... That's the kind of stuff we were clashing about. I ate a sandwich. We were in the middle of Cologne. He left me. I had to go and get on a flight by myself.
And I feel like you're a very alpha female, and maybe
he didn't like that.
Well, for sure. And I feel like he's probably like, both of you are jockeying for position in this relationship. And it's both like, well, no, I can just completely imagine like, he's trying to like call the shots.
Yeah.
You maybe are slightly emasculating him by calling the shots a little bit as well. It escalates. So what started off as something like, well, we're arguing over a sandwich here, but actually escalates into something more because it becomes a bit of a dick swinging exercise between the pair of you. I know this because have a lot of situations like this myself.
So. Exactly, yeah, and it did. You're right when you say about the whole emasculated him, and he didn't recognise it, and I didn't know it until quite a long time after we officially split up. And he, like, one of the things that he really didn't like was, it sounds like proper ridiculous problems, this, but I paid for us to go to New York for his birthday. Like, I paid for a holiday with the kids. And I can't remember, we went on 6 holidays in that year, and I paid for every single one of them, and he hated it. But he didn't tell me until after we'd been on them all, until he was like, this is really difficult for me. And I didn't see it like that. I just thought it was, whatever was mine was his, and we were living this life together, but it really affected him. And he was also very unhappy with his work. And he said, I hate the fact that you turn your hand to everything and you're successful at everything. I was like, that's lovely you think that, because I certainly don't. But I kind of saw why. And he said, it wasn't until a couple of years later that he said, like, I put you down to make myself feel better. And I was like, oh, this is making so much more sense now. But the problem for me was the pain of it was horrific. I've never been through a breakup like it. And I think that breakups are the worst when you feel like the relationship hasn't reached its full potential.
Yeah.
And because like both of my marriages didn't care when they were over.
Yeah, they fizzled out. You weren't really into it anyway. Yeah.
But I wasn't done when that ended. Neither was he. So that's why we carried on going backwards and forwards and backwards and forwards. And because it was such horrific pain for me, he was the only person that could make the pain better. So,
but you're then your whole self-worth and self-esteem is hinging on somebody else.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's been a common theme in your life, looking at the headlines that I was looking at previous to this podcast starting today. Your happiness and self-worth is always hinged on a relationship of a man giving you
until
that
recent
validation. I would say 100% till recently,
until the last 3 years. Definitely. Maybe the last 2. But yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Completely. Especially with that one. That only ended, I mean, we got together in 2014. It only ended in 2020. Properly, fully. Yeah. And it was the very back end of 2020. And the only reason why it properly ended in 2020 is because I moved on to somebody else.
Right.
As a distraction to get me away from that train of thought, and it worked.
So in between you going off and on, because I'm sure a lot of listeners listening to this will probably resonate. They'll have had some kind of guy in their life that's been like there, like a satellite, always in the background. So if like all the way through that, were you dating other people or swearing off other people, or were you kind of like seeing other people but then always had him kind of?
No. There was probably a couple of people I was sleeping with. But no, there wasn't anybody that I would know. There wasn't anybody I was dating. He was.
Right.
And again, that was part of the toxic element of it, is that he wouldn't tell me about it until he was madly in love with somebody else. Yeah. But he'd been seeing me the whole time and not telling me. And I was like, and I had to keep watching the history repeat before I eventually learned.
Yeah.
I wasn't special. This wasn't a great relationship. This is just him and how he is in a relationship.
Yeah.
And it wasn't what I thought. So that was probably one of the singular biggest horrific but learning experiences to find out who I was.
That's a harsh reality to learn. Like, to actually, and the penny finally drops, because sometimes you could probably have these fleeting feelings or fleeting thoughts that, well, I'm just obviously not special to you. And you would probably actually say that to them. Well, I obviously mean nothing to you, do I?
Yeah.
And then they're like, no, of course you do. You mean the world to me, all that. And then you believe that, you cling on to that. But actually, actions speak louder than words.
Well, there was one. This is great. Quite early on in our relationship, I'd been having a really bad day, and he worked about an hour away from where I was at that point in time. And he came from work. He found my car outside where I was. He left a bunch of flowers on my car for me with a note, and then went back to work. And I came out, I was like, oh my God, he's so special, he's so amazing. Yeah. Fast forward 5 years, I'm sat with a girl who he's in a relationship with, who's like, oh my God, and he's been so sweet to me. He came from work and put flowers on my car and then went straight back to work and left me the loveliest note. I'm like, yep.
Straight out the playbook.
It was a playbook, and I saw the same stuff repeating, and it was really horrifically painful to learn from. But if there's one thing that whole period and then the next relationship that I ended up in has taught me, is that I've never been happier than when I'm on my own. And now there's been a couple of like relationships over the last 3 years, but very insignificant ones. And actually now I don't think you could get me into another relationship. I really don't.
Well,
'cause I'm just too happy. That's the problem.
That's fair enough.
I'm just so happy, especially like with my girls. And like when people ask me out and stuff like that, I'm like, oh, I just prefer to stay in and
maybe
watch
that's
Friends.
the best. I think you're in probably the best mentality since I've ever known you, to be honest, because actually if you meet somebody and you're like, I hate to sound like all that woo now, but if you're vibing very low and your self-confidence is low, that is just a beacon of vulnerability to bullshit fellas who are just going to come along and treat you like shit anyway. But actually if you're very in a strong position, really uber confident, that's so attractive. And you'll then attract somebody who's like self-assured and great too.
I mean, it's a nice idea in theory. I just can't see it happening.
I think
And I'm all right with it.
Don't give up on love. But
I mean, I'm not gonna. I will have a third wedding. There will be more wedding cakes to be had. I promise you. But right now, I just can't see it, and I'm kind of a little bit set on the idea that until Peaches gets to 18, I'm just not interested.
Yeah.
Like, I've only got so many years left with her being a child.
Yeah, for sure. Oh, 100%. Well, that's actually the best relationship you could ever be in. I would definitely back that.
I
know. Okay, so you're kind of in this headspace.
Yeah.
I've heard you say in the past that one of your motivations for going on Big Brother was this breakup. So, and I remember when you went on Big Brother, and I remember meeting you before, and I was like, oh my God, okay. We're kind of coming up with a strategy of how you should be in there.
Yeah. And then that all went up to shit. Yeah.
So you went in there with a partner. It was like a partner series, wasn't it?
Yeah, well, it was initially, that series was supposed to be initially just
individual,
not couples,
right?
But it was supposed to be pairs. So it was like mother and daughter. And so I went in with somebody who worked for me at the investigation company who was male, but who I'd also slept with.
Okay, had a bit of a dalliance with, Okay, and how did Big Brother go then?
It was a holiday in a mental asylum.
Yeah,
like it was bloody awful. And the thing was, they didn't show the worst of it. Like, they didn't actually show me in that bad of a light. When I came out the first time, because they put me back in, but when I came out the first time, I kind of did okay.
Yeah.
But they didn't show what I was actually being like and what I was, because the main problem with them was how they were treating us in the process.
Right.
So I had a spinal injury, and I had quite a lot of medication at the time, pain relief. And the beds were awful, as I'm sure you can imagine.
Yeah.
They do this shit on purpose to piss you off.
Of course,
They give you shit hair straighteners, and they only give them to you for an hour a day. They give you hair dryers that are so bad and burn your hair so much, I lost a full head of extensions within 2 weeks. Like, they do stuff on purpose to rile you. But the pain medication stuff was really bad because they weren't giving it to me. You're not even allowed to take a paracetamol in there without going to the diary room and seeing a bloody doctor. So I would press the diary room door for my medication, and they'd just ignore me for 8 hours.
Right.
And they'd be like, so-and-so goes to the diary room, and so-and-so goes to the diary room. And they just left me there. And they kept on pulling me in to the diary room when I'd had one too many drinks. We all drank every single day. Came out a virtual alcoholic.
I didn't realise that you're allowed to drink so much on there. Because is it part of your shopping budget?
No.
Right, or they just give you that? Okay.
They and every time I drink warm Prosecco, it takes me straight back, because they couldn't get the drinks fast enough. Tesco was next door, so they were just going and getting loads of warm Prosecco, and every time that's what we were drinking constantly from about 6 o'clock at night, maybe 5 o'clock. And so there was one day where I was so angry with the way that they were treating people, and not... I spoke to a psychiatrist God knows how many times, as I'm sure you can imagine. But the way that they treated us. I remember going up, you weren't even allowed to go up the stairs without them telling you could. I stormed up the stairs, put my foot on the wall, ripped the door off its hinges, went in and sat on the diary room chair, and he went, "Hello, Rebecca. Is there anything we can do for you today?" I'm like, "Oh no, you gotta talk to me. Are you taking the piss?" I mean, the way that you treat us is absolutely terrible. So they didn't show all of my issues because it pointed out the production problems.
Right.
And one of the reasons why I also went in, yes, obviously I was running away from heartbreak, and not advisable to go and do a reality show.
No, but it's something that's like, fuck you, I'll show you, blah, blah, blah. I'm going to go do something really fun. And
I wanted my phone taken away. I wanted to break that contact. I wanted to have no option.
Yeah.
And how many other opportunities are you going to get where that's going to actually happen? But they said to me as well, because I was very conscious of my own mental state, because as we know by this point, I'd had numerous breakdowns and numerous periods of depression, anxiety that was very significant. And I actually thought the doctors called me in because they check all your medical records, obviously. And the doctors called me in so that I could review my file before they sent it to them. And I was sat there in the doctor's surgery. It was about this thick. I'm going through it. I'm like, oh my God, they're never going to let me in this program. Obviously, to my absolute surprise, they had no issues with any of it. And they said to us, you know, we give you private mental health care for the next year after you come out. That was a load of shit.
Oh, really?
It was a lie. Like,
is this pre Sophie Graydon and Mike from Love Island and Carol? Yeah, this is pre.
Not long before.
Okay.
Sophie. So I knew Sophie, not well, but I knew her, and we'd had quite a lot of conversations about sort of the mental health aspects of reality TV. And where was my train of thought going with this? Hang on.
So you're saying that you looked at your file and you couldn't believe they were going to let you on it?
Yeah, and obviously the whole private mental health care. And the reason why it was shit is because it was 6 months after we'd come out of the house. When I came out of the house, I came out in a bad way.
Right.
I was more mentally unwell. Shock. Who knew that a reality show would do that to you? I came out more mentally unwell than I went in.
Did you get a lot of abuse when you came out? Did you this is like Twitter time, isn't it?
Yeah.
More than Instagram, and everybody's like tweeting bullshit because it's like a cesspit over there.
Yeah, when they put me back into the house, I did, yeah. Because when I came out the first time, I was really naive actually when I was in there. It took me a long time to get to grips with the game of Big Brother. I didn't think it was a game. I just went in and played myself.
Yeah.
But when I came out and I saw how people were playing the game and what they were all saying behind each other's backs and how it really was, that sent me cuckoo. And then when they put me back in, I went crazy. I was like, you're this, you're that, you're all the rest
so
of
you'd
it.
seen what everybody had said behind your back.
And that's why they put me back in, because they knew that as soon as I saw those people, I was going to kick off.
Why did they put you back in?
It was they saw how much I'd been ranting on the outside about all of the two-faced crap that was going on in there. And then so they made a task that was a wedding with the people that were still in there. And then they said, like, we want you to come out of the bit. Does anybody object to this wedding? I was like, send me back in. So when I went back in and then I came out again, yes, I got a lot of abuse then. And rightly so, fine, whatever. Put ourselves up for that. But I became, like I say, after all of that and all of this, seeing how I couldn't trust anybody. I came out and didn't trust anyone, even my closest friends. Everything went into question after that. And it made me very, very unwell. 6 months later, I was highly suicidal. And I was in the hospital. And my friends reached out to production and said, you told us that you were giving us private mental health care. She needs it now. And they didn't speak to them. And then I spoke to them not long after that, and they didn't do anything.
Right.
They just left it.
Channel 4, Channel 5?
This was 5.
5. I mean, I feel like, you've had trust issues with your first partner cheating on you. Then you go into the detective agency, you're seeing all this bullshit going on, and you just think, I can't ever trust anybody. Then you go into a relationship with the guy from next door, and again, that all goes to shit, and like he's cheating on his missus and whatever's going on. Do you know what I mean? So more trust issues. Then you're going into Big Brother and everyone's lying to your face and slagging you off, and then you go back in and realise it. And again, it's like no one's being straight up and honest. And I can imagine that, like, you must feel very isolated at this point, and like you can't trust anybody. But you've got to be strong because you've got 2 kids. You're the mum of 2 kids. So you then felt suicidal. You get in private mental health at that point. So at that point, how long did it take you to like kind of get over that hurdle?
About a year. And that's when I got an offer then to sell the investigation company. Well, after I came out of Big Brother, I never properly went back.
Right.
Because
so it was kind of just running itself at that point?
No, people were running it for me. Obviously, you met one of them. They were kind of running it for me. And it was just like, well, by the time I'd come out, there was still another 4 weeks where they were expecting me to be back. So I was like, well, if you were expecting me to be back, you carry on. And then I never really went back again because I was too unwell.
Yeah.
And then when the offer came to sell it, I was like, yeah, take it. I'm running.
Fair
I
enough.
could not give a shit. And then I
Did
spent
you get a good offer for it?
not as much as it was worth,
No.
but I didn't care.
No, it's just let you take the money.
Did not care. And so I spent 9 months faffing about with projects and doing stuff that I actually wanted to do and that was going to try and help me mentally. And then I ended up at the mental health organisation where I then stayed for the next 3 years.
Okay.
Like that.
Apologies for interrupting this podcast, but I need to ask a favour. If you're enjoying this podcast so far, then please hit that subscribe button right now. I'll be straight up and honest that I want to see this podcast grow and flourish into something that I'm really proud of. And the only way that I can do that is with your help. So if you've ever learned anything useful from these conversations, then please return the favour by liking, rating, subscribing, and maybe even sharing it with your friends. Thanks very much. Let's get back to the episode. So you started working for a mental health organisation. And what was your role there?
Operations director.
Okay, so you had a boss.
Yes.
Okay.
We had an owner, founder, owner, CEO, whoever he was. We had the private mental health clinic. We also had a professional services firm. We had the mental health charity, became a charity while I was there. And then we had a couple of other strands underneath the private professional services. So it was a group operation.
Yeah.
I mainly stayed on the mental health stuff. And whilst I was there, I co-founded a division with him that was corporate mental health care.
Right. Okay. Yeah. And it was successful and you're good at it. I would imagine because you've been through a lot, you could empathise a lot. You know a lot about people at this stage.
Yeah. I knew what I wanted to help me at my worst times, and I knew it didn't exist.
Okay.
So we put all of that stuff in place, and that's what now my business that I've got today is, because obviously that kind of went to shit after 3 years.
Well, the one thing that I actually surprised me when you did go into that job was I just could never imagine you working for anyone else. Because you're very like forthright, it's your way, or it's like very much similar to myself. It's like, I couldn't work for anybody. I couldn't work under anybody else.
Yeah.
Barely can work with people in collaboration sometimes because it's like...
Well, yeah, that is a bit hard work. No, do you know what? And everybody has this opinion of me. But actually, the only thing that the place where I've been the happiest is when I've been employed. I hate being a business owner. I said I never wanted to do it again. Hate it. Despise it. Even now to this day, I still despise it. I was furious when I had to take over the ownership. Furious because I never wanted to do it. I had no choice though. That was the difference.
Okay, so we should say, because I know you've spoken about this before.
Where do you want to go now?
Again, if we ever thought Rebecca had trust issues before, they're about to get a lot worse. So you start working at this mental health charity.
Yeah.
And again, I think the owner's let's all remember it's a mental health charity.
Oh God, yeah.
So, but I mean, I've heard you describe it as a bit of a cult.
It was a cult.
Okay, so what was...
It wasn't in the beginning.
Okay.
It ended up that way. The last year of being there, it was a cult, yeah. We had to sit around on a Monday morning in a circle, sharing our deepmost inner thoughts and feelings with everybody that worked there. And
I mean, just to play devil's advocate, is that not what I don't know, isn't that the whole premise of a mental health charity? We're all going to sit around, talk about our feelings, let's get it off our chest, let's move on from it.
Not when you're forcing people to do it.
Right.
That's the difference. And people that didn't want to do it, if they didn't do it, were ostracized and isolated. And again, because and eventually all the things that we shared and all of the vulnerabilities that we showed and our weaknesses were all got used against quite a lot of us that were there in the end. And that's one of the differences.
It's a bit like bloody Scientology where you go in and you do the whatever it's called, going clear bullshit. And they just literally say, no, you need to, get rid of your conscious, you need to tell us your innermost thoughts, these horrible feelings you've got. Otherwise, you'll never be going clear and you'll never go up a level in Scientology. Yeah. But actually, they're recording everything, they're writing everything down to use it against you at a later date if you ever want to leave the church.
Which is what happened.
Okay.
Yeah, to a lot of people, not just me, but to a lot of people, yeah.
Did you ever raise this as concern to anybody? and say like, this is making me feel a bit uncomfortable. I don't really want to do this.
I was kind of okay with it because I didn't quite realise what was happening and what was going on. Also, this was, when it got really bad, was when COVID kicked in.
Right.
That's when things changed. And the owner and his wife did not believe in COVID. They didn't believe they had a lot of issues around control, stuff like that. And so that's why it became very controlling. And that was one of the ways that it became controlling. There were other stuff like we got told how much water we were allowed to boil in a kettle. We got told what brand of apples we could and couldn't eat. Like, you know.
Stop boiling so much water, using too much electricity. I'm always filling up the frigging kettle to the top.
Yeah. Well, we got bollocked for that. And we got told if you fill up that kettle to the top, you can go downstairs and you can watch the meter go around and see what it's doing to the electricity meter. So yeah, I was raising a few concerns, but if you've raised the concerns, you've got repercussions.
Right.
So, but I was kind of okay with the whole sharing your feelings thing. It wasn't until everything kind of combined and I came out the other side, I was like, yeah, that was really bad. Whereas other people were saying it at the time.
Oh, right. Okay.
And then I looked back after it all and looked at the effect that had on them and was like, yeah, what we were doing weren't right.
I mean, it got worse than that for you. So in the fact that your boss made you feel very uncomfortable because he was like very like, what's the word?
He wasn't too bad.
I wasn't too bad at the point.
He wasn't too bad.
Yeah, but what about all the sexual advances that like came? That was obviously terrible. Never mind all the COVID bullshit and like stop boiling the kettle, Rebecca, and whatever. Like that's one thing.
Stop boiling the kettle, Rebecca.
Stop boiling the kettle so much. You're using too much electricity. But actually, I know you've spoken about this in the past as well, where he started texting you inappropriately. It started making you feel uncomfortable at work. And again, as somebody who pins their kind of self-esteem on external validation.
And he knew all that. And
exactly. And obviously you've then like...
He was a professional too.
Absolutely. A professional. Somebody
who knew it all.
You've been working with very closely. I know you've said to me in the past that you were like best friends with this guy. So, and I've been in this situation myself where I've been friends with a guy and then they've like done something that is like way over the line. And you're like, what have you just done? Ruined our friendship like that. But then I think, well, it's my fault because you should know that you can't have a platonic friend.
Yeah.
So I blame myself and think, no, it's obviously my fault because I've trusted them and now they've stepped over the line. It's my fault. Yeah. So.
Well, the first time it happened, I did not see it coming. Yes, we were, now I look at it and say we were too close.
Yeah.
But at the time, I was fine with it. We were incredibly close. He was like my brother. I thought he was going to give me away at my third wedding. That's how close we were.
Yeah.
And then it was, I just did not see it coming at all. And then randomly.
I think maybe we've been naive.
I think
I'm telling you now, I look back as a 38-year-old woman instead of like a 30-year-old woman when these things just happen to me and go, you were fucking naive.
And everybody saw it as well.
Yeah.
And afterwards, everybody was like, yeah.
Men don't want to be friends with women unless they're trying to bone them. It's true, though.
No,
I've only got one male platonic friend who's not tried to bone me.
Yeah, you've possibly got a point.
Maybe
and now I'm very cautious, and now I would not have a male who was such close of a friend. But he was, literally one night, all of a sudden, he sent me a messages that were, I were literally sat there going, oh no, what do I do?
I know.
I was like, oh,
and it's
shit.
Like awkward as fuck.
And
what are you supposed to say like, whoa, you're out of line.
Well, obviously the toxic guy, I was sending him the screenshot saying, what the shit do I say to this? That's how toxic it was. I was asking for his advice.
I know.
And so I tried to manage it as best as I could. But then the aftermath of that was 2 days later, I was asking our centre manager of the place that we worked to come and see me because I'd been so panicked, so anxious about what is he going to do because I've turned him down. Is he going to get rid of me? Is he going to tell his wife like that he's done this? What's going to happen to me? And I sat her down and I told her everything. I showed her everything. And she's like, Rebecca, you've done nothing wrong. And I said, if he tries to get rid of me, I went, please support me. That was my mindset.
Yeah.
And then, over the next few months, there were a few things that was like, I've been making a cup of tea with, 1 cup full of water in the kettle. And he'd like come behind me and grab hold of my waist. And later on, months later, when things obviously changed, he said, like, I could always feel you freeze up as I'd touch you.
Yeah.
I was like, well,
yeah. Well, what do you expect?
Come on.
Yeah, I'm at work where your wife works as well.
Yeah.
And by the way, I've met this guy and his wife. And I'm in it's inappropriate. I don't know what to say for the best. And it's really...
I didn't want to lose my friend either.
Exactly. I totally get it. And people will probably sit listening to this thinking, well, stupid frigging bitches, but whatever. I've definitely been in this situation
I definitely say that's true
myself.
Too.
Yeah.
Yeah, I definitely would say that's true.
Yeah, but I've only got the confidence now to actually call this shit out.
Yeah,
maybe I don't sometimes, because actually it's not recently, but definitely I would say still in the last few years, there's been situations I've found myself in. I'm like, oh, please don't be inappropriate, because I'm going to have to really shout at you now. And it's awkward as fuck. I know,
but I do think I learned a lot of lessons from that, because obviously, the elephant in the room is that I ended up in a 5-month relationship with him.
Yeah.
In the end, again, it was, he didn't directly make an advance until there was one night where he then did. And it was a day after, I think, from when I'd sort of officially properly said to the toxic guy, we are done.
Yeah.
And I genuinely meant it. And when he then made his advance the next day or the day after, I forget if it was 1 or 2 days, I remember thinking, just go with this for the weekend to distract yourself, to not message the other guy. And that's kind of it. And then just because also he'd said it so much by this point that I thought, I probably need to let him actually properly talk to me about it, rather than just make a couple of these advances, and where is it actually coming from, and are we actually missing something that could be really good here?
Well, if he's your best friend and you've got a lot of affection for him, a lot of feelings for him, etc. So where was your head at?
My head was no. It was very I'm okay talking about it. I'm okay sort of addressing it so that we can move on from it, actually. But then, something happened that very much changed it, and it became physical. And then, and that first time was, oh my God, what the hell have we done? There's no going back now. And that feeling of, we can never come back from this now. And then it was a case of, well, it was kind of okay. It's kind of good.
Yeah.
See if it actually is something, because am I being stupid for not properly exploring it? So we did.
And what about his missus? Because are you still working there at the same time? Is she still working there? So it's awkward as fuck.
So that was one of the reasons why it started to go wrong for me, and I ended it, because I couldn't handle the inauthenticity of it all. I couldn't handle it from myself. I couldn't handle being there every day lying to everybody around us. I couldn't handle seeing him lie to her constantly, me lying to her. Couldn't cope with it. It was taking me back to all of those trust issues, that what the hell am I doing? Stop.
Did anyone get onto it? Because obviously when there's chemistry going on.
Yeah, a lot,
you can tell, and people are looking at each other differently. And,
they didn't say it to me until afterwards.
No, but they could.
They knew.
There's a different vibration in the office going on.
Yes, and a lot of people mistook me and him for being together than them two as well, which is quite weird, because I didn't ever see it like that. But actually she knew.
Oh, really?
That I didn't know. I actually didn't know until not that long ago. Long before it actually happened, she had been saying it frequently to friends. and putting herself in situations with us both to stop us from spending time together and manipulating situations because she was so convinced.
Well, I can't, say, I think a woman's intuition,
it
itself.
makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. And you can't blame her
No.
thinking, well, I'm going to insert myself into this situation because I'm pretty sure they're shagging. That's, you would, wouldn't you?
Yeah.
Especially if you don't trust him and his behaviour's changed and, Well, that was a complete shit show. How did you get out of that one?
Gets worse before it gets better again.
Christ. That's another element of this I was going to bring up because, again, it's all public record.
Yeah.
So
where do we start? Oh no. Right. Okay. So as it was ending with him, but it wasn't quite over, somebody sent me a message on Twitter.
Someone slid into your DMs.
Yeah. And, like you say, public record, so whatever. It was Michael Owen. Of all the random bizarre things.
Were you like, what the fuck? This is Michael Owen?
Yeah. Of course I was. I'm pushing towards 40. Anybody of my age and my generation is like, oh my God, Michael Owen.
Risky from him as well. Risky.
Well, risky. But then he started, obviously we started messaging quite a lot. We started speaking on the phone and voice noting.
What did he say in the first DM? Hey, how you doing?
No.
Or was it more like
I think it was
suggestive?
It was when I changed my hair from, remember when I went from red to blonde to red to blonde?
Yeah.
It was when I'd gone from red to blonde and I'd put it on Twitter and he sent me a compliments or a few.
Right, okay.
And then obviously we started messaging more out of curiosity than anything. But yeah, he I mean, now, when we talk about that naive thing.
Well, again, yeah, of course, I know. But so what, again, married man. So what,
well, he said no.
Exactly. So did he bring up this with him? Like, Michael, this is inappropriate. Aren't you married?
I said to him, I said to him, I was like, aren't you like Mr. Lovely, sweet, married with kids?
Yeah.
Happy as Larry? He's like, yeah, but no. I was like, well, what do you mean? And he said that basically his marriage was a sham for publicity and that they just weren't updating the public that they hadn't been together for a long time. I was like, But then over the course of the period of time that we were talking, the more things he said. And
did you definitely did he make it clear it was him, or did you ever think it was somebody running his account?
Well, speaking to him.
Right, okay. So at this point it moved from Twitter to WhatsApp or phone calls and stuff, so you knew, okay.
Yeah, he was ringing me at all times of day and night.
Right.
Every day. So it was like, because of the consistency in the messages and other things that he said that I won't repeat, what he was saying kind of made sense. And it was like, actually, there could be some truth in this. I still think there is some truth in it, actually.
Right.
But how did it then? So he kept on arranging for us to do stuff, and I kept on cancelling because there was a few things that he was doing and saying that led me to concern.
Right.
Which, again, I won't say in public because it'd affect a lot of things for him and his family. But I was like, this is not a guy that I need to be involved with.
Right.
So I cut that off. I didn't actually ever end up meeting him. I think I was supposed to meet him about 5 times. But I kept on saying, I just can't. And
what was I read a headline that it said something like he was begging me for nudes. And so, he definitely if you had met up, you knew what was kind of in his mind.
Well, I told him, and that's what he wanted.
Yeah.
What I was saying was quite different. But there were, in the beginning of it all, yes, it probably was more potentially sort of romantic, but the more things went on, the more I was like,
right, okay.
No. And I'll tell you afterwards why. But, sorry. But no, so I stopped it all. But we were still kept in touch, but it was like, no from me, thank you, but no.
Right.
But we still kept in touch, and I had a friend of mine. So obviously we have friends that are journalists.
Yeah.
And I had two of my friends at a party. One was a journalist for one of the national papers, and Michael was there.
Right.
And the friend was talking to my other friend, who's the journalist, and saying, oh, yeah, Rebecca this and blah, 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 blah. So that journalist knows me well. So he rang me up and he went, Rebecca, is this true? I was like, yeah, but like, it's not a thing. And he said, like, can we pay you for your story? And I went, no. And then as the weeks, slightly over a week kind of went on, he offered me, I think it was either 20 or 30,000 for it. I was like, it's a non-story.
Yeah.
Like nothing happened. But the context of everything that was in the messages and the things that he'd said were probably very newsworthy. I was like, oh, I just don't think I can. At the same time, obviously, things had kind of been put on a back burner with me and the boss.
Yeah.
And I was at work when the discussion about this offer had come in, and he was furious.
I bet he was.
He was absolutely raging. And
I mean, he's got two reasons to be raging. One, he's going to think, well, you were going to bring the business into disrepute. And two, because it's going to be mentioned where you work. And two, that he's in love with you or whatever, infatuated or in a relationship or sleeping with.
And he knew that I'd been messaging him at the same time.
Exactly.
And
so
he didn't like it.
Well, exactly. No man's going to want that.
So he categorically said two things. Categorically, take the money and I will fire you. I was like, okay, cool, thanks. And then the other thing that he said straight away afterwards, it's a hell of a lot of money though. Even I'm thinking of ways to make 10 grand off this. I'm like,
right, okay.
Sorry, what? And he said it in front of people in the office as well, and everybody was like, okay. So one thing and another. And then obviously we had a lot of private conversations and like I said, he was raging and he made it very clear that he would fire me. So I rang up the journalist and said, I can't take it. I said, I've been told I'll be fired if I do and I'm not risking my job. And then they put the offer to 40,000. I was like, this is, and I shouldn't want to sell a story about it, but £40,000 for a single mother of two kids is a lot of money to turn down.
Did you worry about the kids or what they would say or think?
No, because I knew that what I'd done in that situation wasn't that bad. Like, yeah, I've messaged a guy who is apparently married. At this point in time, I didn't know any different than yes, they're not together.
Yeah.
And that was kind of what they were pinning the story on, really, as well as a few other bits that he said about other footballers and other people of very prominence. So it was kind of, it weren't really an article for a bad light of me.
Right, okay.
So I was kind of okay with that. But again, I had another conversation with the boss who made his feelings very clear again, and he was making my life hell then. And every single day he was ignoring me. He was isolating me. And I was like, I can't do this. So I did turn it down. And the journalist said, we're going to run the story anyway. I went, right, okay.
Sure, well, that's lovely. Bullshit. I mean, I know that as being a tabloid journalist who have put, well, a lot of people in this position say, well, we're doing it with or without you, so you might as well...
To make you take the money.
You might as well come on board and at least have control over what we're going to say, otherwise we'll tell it wrong. Said it all. I've said it all. I've even dangled carrots and said, we'll give you 100 grand. Knowing that they're never going to get anywhere near that because at the top of the contract, it used to say any payments are at the editor's discretion. You could offer 100 grand. Didn't mean they were ever going to get it.
Well,
this is the reason I'm not a journalist anymore, by the way, because it was just
unethical.
I hated it. Hated it.
They did actually write it up as a contract and they did send the editor of that newspaper to see me.
Okay.
To make me believe it.
Okay.
And even then I still said no.
Okay. Did he up it again?
No.
Okay.
No, because I was like, don't even tell me anymore because I can't cope.
Yeah.
And I was absolutely going out of my mind. Like I was losing it. And they knew that. And they knew my mental health history as well. So they left it. But they did say that they were going to run it. Anyway, a few weeks went by and they didn't. But it was kind of always still there on the back burner. The next thing I know, another newspaper ran it.
Oh, really? Oh, right.
And it wasn't the newspaper I'd been talking to.
Oh, really?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And obviously, you know which one it ended up being. But yeah, they ran it front page Sunday. I found out about I found out it was finally running at midnight. But actually, I'd been told and asked for comment about 5-6 hours before it. And I said, I'm not having
Who
anything
tipped
to do
them
with
off then, do you think? It could have been, well, it could have been, listen, journalists are all good friends, like even though they work for rival papers, and a lot of them are in relationships with each other, by the way, so it's pillow talk as well. And if they think, well, this is not running for you, but we'll sell it, you know, they tip each other off, don't they? And they get backhanders.
Even Kelvin McKenzie came out at that weekend and said about the newspaper that had the story, shame on you, you've had this for weeks and you had it swiped from under you and you deserve to have it swiped from under you.
Yeah.
And it was like, oh, but no, I don't know. But I did have quite a few conversations with the boss afterwards saying, did you
tip him off?
Do something about this? And I actually don't think that he did. We did have a conversation about 6 months later after that, and I actually don't think that it was anything to do with him. But
so
it came out.
You didn't get your dough. You didn't get your 40 grand. Fucking.
I didn't get my 40 grand.
Fucking hell. So it's out there anyway. And you're, well, this is the reason why you should took the contract. And this is why I tell people on the doorstep when I used to do this. I was like, you don't run it, we're going to run it anyway. You're going to get nothing. So,
but they came to me for comment and I said, I'm not commenting, blah, blah, blah. And I actually thought, if I say that, it's fine because it's going to go to Michael Owen's people and he's going to threaten to sue them and blah, blah, blah. And it won't run. I was wrong. It went to him. They approved the story.
Oh my God.
I was like, what?
Why would you ever approve it?
He approved it. And he approved it. They actually, it seemed like they quite liked the story.
I would say that if it was me and I'm still on the news desk or whatever, the reason it was newsworthy at that time was because his daughter was going in Love Island. And
no, she didn't go into for a year later.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay.
This was a year before that.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So no, it wasn't. But it ran.
Because I saw a story before. Did you ever do a follow-up piece then?
Yes.
Right. Okay.
Yes.
They must have come back round because it's got newsworthy again.
Well.
Right.
So the reason why I did that. So obviously that ran on the Sunday. Monday morning, I get suspended.
Yeah.
Shock.
Yeah.
And I was like, fuck's sake. And then again, the boss was just an absolute arsehole about the whole thing. And then the solicitor rang me up and said, because you co-founded a division of this business with him and because of how much he thinks of you and how hard you've worked, he's going to give you this division of the business to leave or he's going to fire you. And I went, that's not why he wants me to leave. And she's like, what do you mean? And I went, he wants me to leave because I've been having a relationship with him for 5 months. She was like, sorry, what?
HR fucking nightmare.
Yeah. I said, so you can try and get rid of me, but do it on the truth. So I told her everything. She was like, I'm going to have to go back to my client for instruction. I was like, yeah, good luck. So anyway, we ended up coming to a deal where they paid me to leave and they gave me the division of the business that I'd co-founded with him, which is now obviously what I've got. But then they still...
That's called RJ Coaching, is that right?
No, RJ8.
RJ8, okay, yeah.
But they still spun it as that they'd fired me because of the Michael Owen article.
Right.
Because they wanted to save face.
Yeah. Well,
Which is fine, but I'll tell the truth
and the story
still.
sticks, doesn't it? So... Fucking hell. I'm looking at the clock here and thinking, God, we've got to wrap up in like 2 minutes time here. Bloody hell. So I'm just trying to get... I think we're going to have to do a part 2 because we've got loads more to talk about. So the next story. So a year later, they come back to you. You know, I know if I was a journalist, I'd be like ringing you up all the time saying, "Oh, you're going to do the story."
Because Gemma
you've still got a treasure trove of info there,
and Gemma put a lot of information about me online.
Okay,
so
that's his daughter.
So when they came to me, it was because she was going in Love Island.
Right.
And actually, I wanted to set the story straight that I didn't get fired for this article. I got fired because of what my boss did.
Yeah.
So that's why I then, but I got nowhere near my 40 grand because the story was already out and it was worthless almost. So, but yeah, I did, yeah.
And fair enough, yeah. So did you feel like you got your side? Did that create a backlash?
No.
I read somewhere that you actually spoke to Michael Owen's wife about this.
Yes.
Was she like horrified, cool
She's
about
lovely.
it?
She's really nice, decent lady. I profusely apologised.
She apologised to you?
No, I
Oh, right. I was like, fucking hell, yeah. She must be a nice lady.
No, she was very good. She was very understanding. There seemed to have been some truth in the things that he had told me.
Right.
However, he told me a lot of other stuff, and I thought, well, do you know what? She deserves to know everything now.
Yeah.
So spoke to her. Nice woman. Didn't deserve any of it.
Well, that's nice. I feel like that's a bit of resolution.
Oh, that's nice.
No, but that's a bit of resolution because these things can go, awfully. And listen, essentially, he's reached out to you. She's probably, I bet you're not the only one.
No, I wasn't. And so that's why I told her about the others.
Right.
But she had an incredible amount of class, dignity. And if I am ever in her situation, which highly probably I will, I hope I handle it in the same way that she did, because massive respect for her.
Well, on that bombshell, I've got to wrap it up. But I swear to God, this has flown through. I can't even believe it. But I'm definitely getting you back for the next episode because I've still got loads to ask you about your political career.
Oh, yeah.
About your TV career.
Yeah.
I mean, if you Google Rebecca Jane, you'll see that she's always on GB News. She's always on This Morning. I was going to ask you about Philip Schofield. I've got fucking loads to ask you.
Yeah, that too.
But unfortunately, I've come to the end of today's episode. So, so everybody will have to tune back in for what else we're going to say. And stay tuned for another episode. Me. Yeah. To be continued.
To be continued.
Thank you.